Welcome to Titan HST's Business Continuity Today, hosted by Todd DeVoe, where planning meets reality.
Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are at in this fine world. And well, here in California, we are getting pummeled with rain. And in Northern California, there's lots of floods. I think there's some stuff going on here too in SoCal. And the reason why I bring this up is one of the cities, and you can look it up, it's going to go unnamed right now, started blaming the National Weather Service for their lack of preparation. I found that kind of interesting. So you might want to check that out on some news media stuff. But this brings me to the question of what are your threats that you are facing? And so threat hazard identification risk assessment, or THIRA, is a systematic process for identifying and evaluating potential threats and hazards to an organization. So any organization, and I know we mostly think of THIRA as being done at local and municipal governments doing THIRAs, but businesses should do them too. Now, we might hear them called different things, but specifically in risk management, in emergency management, and business continuity, the THIRA really sets your scope on how you're going to approach different disasters, such as the floods that are happening and the heavy rains that are happening now. Or, a couple weeks ago, the snows that were in the Northeast, right? Matter of fact, the Northeast is going to get snowed again, except it's not going to be as bad as the blizzard was. So, the THIRA goes to define that scope. And the first step of conducting a THIRA is to define the scope of the assessment. So this includes identifying the boundaries of the assessment, such as geographical area, the types of threats and hazards to be considered, and the time frame. So that idea of the geographical area makes sense if you are, say, have one office in, say, California. Excuse me. California. But say you're a multinational organization, obviously the geographical area changes, and the types of threats and the hazards to each area that you're looking at change. So obviously here in California, earthquake is a concern, flooding from rain is a concern, those type of landslides, fires, those are big concerns here in California. Now in the Northeast, snow is going to be a problem. Potentially earthquakes aren't going to be a big issue, although they do have earthquakes, right? We know this from a few years ago. So doing a THIRA is to take the geographical area, the area that you're taking a look at, and then the types of threats and hazards that are considered. And so realistically, I don't need to plan for tornadoes or hurricanes here in Southern California. Now, could they happen? Absolutely. Have they happened in the past? Yep, they have. But then we take a look at identifying those threats as the next step, and the potential threats and hazards that could affect the organization. So this includes both internal and external threats to the hazards. So internal threats to the hazards may include things like equipment failures, employee accidents, while external threats are going to be the natural disaster, cyber attacks, and terrorism. And so what I say here is this is where you want to do a thorough a threat matrix, right? Your high probability, that's a low probability, high impact, low impact on that threat matrix. And so this is something that will help you really identify and what you need to plan for. And so what is the likelihood of the impact? So once potential threats and hazards have been identified, the next step is to access that likelihood of potential impact. And so that's why the high probability versus low probability is critical, because like I said, we may have tornadoes here in Southern California. It potentially could happen. We had one when I was working for a coastal community. Came off as a water spout and then came back in and came down as a tornado and took a roof off of a house and sunk some boats and flipped the car. So could we have tornadoes? Absolutely. Is it going to be like the tornadoes that we have in the Midwest, or no? Right. Could we have hurricanes? Sure. 1885, I think there was a hurricane potential this year, but it didn't come up. It just became a tropical storm. So yeah, those threats are there, but that's going to be a low probability. Although with something like a hurricane with the coastal communities, that could be a high impact. So that's how you want to kind of measure those out there. Assess those vulnerabilities. So the next step is to assess the vulnerabilities of the organization, and this includes identifying what organization is most vulnerable to potential threats and hazards, and determining the potential consequences of those vulnerabilities. And that's your high probability and what your impact on there, right? And it goes to what are those impacts of those vulnerabilities? Obviously a cyber attack, ransomware, or uh, somebody taking a hostage of your data. you know I think that's critical that we have to be thinking about that and working with your IT team and what it means to respond to that. And then on the natural side here, these large rains that we're having right now, I don't know if you can hear them or not. With the large rain happening, what are the flood areas that you're going to have? Is your building in an area that could potentially flood? What about your employees? Where are they at? So what are those vulnerabilities? How can they get into that? So again, that high impact, what does it mean? And then the next step is to develop strategies. And like everything else, you want to have a strategy that you can, in goals and objectives, to be able to take care of those problems. So what's likely to impact of vulnerabilities and potential threats and hazards have been assessed. The next step is develop a strategy to mitigate or eliminate them. Right now, obviously, with rain, you can't eliminate rain, but you can help with the flooding issue by going, hey, this area floods on a regular basis. Do we move our office right from the flood area, or is there some mechanical stuff that you can purchase to keep the flooding from happening into your building, such as tarps and sandbags and things like that, right? Knowing that the rain is coming, pre-planning to get those things deployed. I think that's what we're talking about, right? When you're mitigating those issues. And then the final step is implement and test. So you always have to test what you're doing. The THIRA process is implement strategies first, right? And go through those, test them out, see where your holes are, what you need to do to fix them for the real world event. And my philosophy on testing and exercise and drills is pretty simple. Don't expect to have a successful event, right? And everybody walks away going, "Oh, we did such a great job," and we pat each other on the back. That's a failed test in my mind. You want to stress that situation almost to the point to where you break the plan, and that is where you learn where the holes truly are that you can fix. If you plan your exercise to be successful in the sense of everybody walks in and we save the day in 2 minutes, that's not a successful plan or exercise. And so plan to fail. It's okay. And, stress your staff out. And the other side of it too, and when I say stress your staff out, we're not stressing them to the point to where we blame the individual employee for the failure on that, right? If the plan fails, that's okay. That's the plan that's failing, not the individuals. And so, but you have to stress them to the point of where they have to make those decisions on the fly and to see if it falls within what your expectations and your vulnerability tests and what your THIRA is showing. So conducting a THIRA is an important part of risk management for any organization. And by providing and identifying and evaluating potential threats and hazards, organizations can develop strategies to mitigate and eliminate those risks in helping the safety and continuity of their operations. And as we look at the weather that's happening here, again, like I said, in California, we know right now that we need to be looking at did our plan work, right? And I think that's the most important. Like anything else, our planning and exercises are critical to what we do as emergency management and business continuity professionals. And like everything else, has been said multiple times, but I think Dwight Eisenhower has been credited with saying this, that no plan survives first contact, and that it's the planning process, not the plan itself, which is critical to making your organization successful in responding to and recovering from a crisis, and keeping those doors open and business running, and thriving after an event instead of just surviving. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for being with me tonight. It's my pleasure. And Titan HSTs loves to see what you guys are doing. Reach out to them at titanhst.com to just check them out and see what they have going on, and maybe they can be part of your solution for your THIRA. Until next time, everyone, stay safe, stay hydrated.